some more oils.
I need to get more of your oil. I'm running low.
I'm going to keep making it.
Yes. All right. Welcome back to the Okayest Cook Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Whonsetler, joined by Corey remotely today. Welcome back to the show, sir. It's been minutes. Yes. Life keeps getting in the way. That's okay. Enough of us. We're all here to talk food, and I'm not going to fool around. We don't need to hear a small chit-chat, jibber-jabber from me. Today, we have a cool guest. We have Chris from Halfass Offgrid joining us. How you doing, Chris?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, Corey's going to have to differentiate who he's addressing when you've got a question for one of us. I think. Actually, Corey, I think we're just going to direct all the questions to Halfass Chris.
I think that's a good idea.
Not me, Chris. So I don't need to answer any questions tonight. We're here to learn. We're here to explore what it means, what it takes to go off grid. I guess cooking off grid, preserving off grid. All the things, and everything food related.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Without power, right? But before we get too deep, let's talk about some stuff we've eaten this week. Do you guys have any cool, notable meals that you guys have had?
Well, I mean, so it's been a while since the last time, but I mean, I would say Thanksgiving was just right around
wasn't too long ago. Yeah.
And I know, I was texting the group. I did that Fanta citrus spatchcock turkey. So Chris, I did an orange Fanta brine with sea salt and cloves and citrus and all kinds of great stuff. And it turned out really good. And surprisingly, it actually, that citrus, that Fanta gave a nice little tang to it, like nice little pop. But it was really good, and it was a hit. Everybody in the family really enjoyed it. So
yeah, I love citrus turkey. It's a phenomenal combination, I think.
Yeah, turn the turkey orange. That was interesting.
All those food dyes in the Fanta.
Yeah.
Changing your turkey.
Our American version of Fanta.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Neon turkey.
That's hilarious. Right. I was kind of curious, what the carbonation. I mean, it's not gonna carbonate your turkey, but I was kind of because soda, they use Coca-Cola to de-rust bumpers and all that. So I was curious about like how tender your turkey came out.
Oh, it was definitely
average.
Super tender and juicy. I mean, as soon as I cut into it, I mean, it was just oozing. But I mean, my family's done that for years. My uncle does the turkey every year, and his brine is a Coca-Cola brine.
Nice.
I mean, he's done that since I was a kid. So
I haven't tried any sodas.
It just breaks the meat down pretty good, I think.
Yeah. Someday we'll give it a go. Well, Chris, I'm going to let you go next because I think mine is going to segue perfectly into our chat tonight. So,
alrighty.
You eat any cool?
Well, actually, we just had the Thanksgiving holiday, like Corey mentioned, and my wife and I were getting ready to go get our Christmas tree the next day, like we always do. And nice. I don't know how we got on the subject, but we're like, hey, maybe we should try and churn our own butter. And my wife's like, we have a butter churn? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I got my grandma's butter churn. She's like, okay, we'll give it a shot. So we went up north by our cabin to get our Christmas tree, and we picked up I guess it would be a half gallon of store-bought cream. We came back and we churned our own butter, and I did a video of it on our YouTube channel. And the last time I did it, I was 8 or 9 years old, doing it with my grandma, chugging away on this thing. It seemed like it took hours. Well, let's just say it was a really short video because it took about 6 minutes to get it halfway there, and then about another 6 minutes. And so it made the best butter. And so what we did the next morning for Sunday breakfast, we strained off the buttermilk, and my wife made buttermilk pancakes out of that buttermilk. And then we had our own farm fresh eggs. I made some scrambled eggs, and then we put more homemade butter on it with our own huckleberry jam. And I mean, talk about something to be thankful for. We're like, holy cow, we just put this all together, and the only thing we didn't make was the flour. So it was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool experience, and
dude,
it
that's
was
incredible. Yeah, I've never tried making butter. I've heard you could just do it in like a ball jar and just like shake it like crazy.
Yeah, this was in it was my grandma's churn from like the 1940s. You know, it's a little gear drive one, and yeah, I was shocked how easy it was. It was not what I remembered when I was a kid.
So is it just you like being an impatient kid? Like it was the exact same amount of time, just like being impatient?
Yeah, I think so.
or stronger, better technique nowadays.
Yeah,
that's funny.
A little bit stronger these days.
It could be, yeah. I'm about, twice the size.
Dude, that's awesome. Well, I had a stew this week that I made last year, and it's been sitting in my pantry all year. It was a pressure canned venison stew, and it was good. I wouldn't say it was awesome. It was definitely better than like your Campbell's stew, but nothing close to like the day you make it. Definitely that preservation takes a toll on some of the flavors. I think I also put in too much bay leaf because it had this kind of, I don't know how to describe it. I was thinking about it. It wasn't like, I mean, it's the flavor of bay. Like how do you describe bay?
Like
bay
earthy.
Leaf?
I was going to say, I described it as if you have it in there, it's in there, but if you don't have it, you're like, what am I missing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, but too much of that. And I did, so I chat the other day with Alan from Bluebeard. He recommends like vinegars in lots of things. So I just like threw in some balsamic vinegar, and that really kind of like countered that extra bay flavor really well. I probably would have gone back if I could reverse time and do it again, maybe do like a red wine vinegar instead of the balsamic. Mm-hmm. I liked it. It turned out good. But yeah, definitely that acidity really helps what was going on there.
But that red probably would have given it a little bit more sweet.
I think so. Yeah. Or just the wine flavors. It would have amped that
give
up
it that depth.
Yeah. Cause I don't know what the bay, what that flavor is called. But it was a bit too intense. But definitely think that vinegar really helped cut it. Really well.
That's awesome. I remember when you sent us that picture. When you texted us that you were canning there.
Yeah, I think it might have been May last year, May 2023. I put the thing on the can, but I forgot to write it down, how old the stew actually was. But I need to look into like how long is this stuff actually shelf stable? Like, what do they say? I mean, definitely a year, but like I know you start losing
I've always
nutrients.
Heard it's about a year and a half.
Okay. And it's not actually going to go bad per se, right? It's just going to get texture's probably going to throw off, and
I think it just depends on how well you get your seal is, like how well your seal is, and did you get all the oxygen out? Did you get all the water, evaporated out of it? Like,
there's definitely nothing alive in the can. Like that pressure canning is like definitely killing everything inside. So as long as nothing's sneaking in elsewhere.
That's a big thing right now, man. I'm seeing tons of that on my newsfeed is canning venison.
Oh, yeah.
It takes up a lot of freezer space.
It does. Well, that's exactly why I did it. Because at the time, my freezer was chock full, and I had this spare deer, and I was like, well, oh gosh, what do I do? So a lot of jerky, and, I canned some of the meat just straight up, and then I made some stews, and yeah, it turned out really good. So,
definitely, it's just amazing, just plain canned up. I mean, we just did that a couple of years ago. Just big old chunks, salt, pepper, and pressure can it, and it comes out just stupid good.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I just kind of pick at mine like straight from the jar, but I need to come up with a soup recipe or something for it, like some stroganoff or something like that.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah,
it'd be so good.
That's good, man. And I'll be honest. And so on the back end of that, I texted you guys. I made my first bone broth.
Yeah,
turkey bone broth and canned that. And so I ended up getting right at 72 ounces out of it. So And I go through a lot of bone broth, so
yeah, dude.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, the stocks and broths are money. No. Nice. Well, definitely kicking off kind of where we want to go tonight. So what do we do when our freezer fails us or our power fails us? How do we cook? How do we preserve? How do we, keep us energized, via food? And Chris, you're the man we want to talk to tonight. Cause you're currently living this, starting this journey. You were recently on another hunting food podcast, the Huntervore, and you guys went really deep into like your story, kind of what you're currently up to, and kind of like the start. So I don't think we necessarily need to go into that again. Listeners, I would say just go over, listen to Chris and Nick's chat on the Huntervore podcast for a lot of Chris's backstory. But Chris, if you just want to give us like maybe the 20-second rundown of kind of like what you're up to, and maybe kind of kick us off into a direction you want to take this show tonight.
Okay. Well, I'm not 100% sure on the direction. I mean, you guys are the experts on that. But basically, the synopsis of what my wife and I are up to, we're empty nesters. Our youngest is 21 years old. She's off at college. And a few years ago, we bought a cabin. Or we didn't buy a cabin. We built a cabin on a piece of property we bought north of here. It sits on about 5 1/3 acres. It's bordered by about 12,000 acres of national forest. And, I'm getting close to retirement. My wife is, she's younger than me, so she's going to be behind me. But the secret that's out is we're both government workers. So, we've been to a lot of trainings. I've been to a lot of trainings, FEMA trainings, Homeland Security and all that. And it's a very real thing that, our system that we live under, our grid could fail. So, if you want to continue having the quality of life that you have now, I think that you have to go back to some of the old ways to serve your food, to, preserve your way of life. And so, as we go on, we keep, trying things that we saw when we were kids that our grandparents were doing. We don't get too crazy with it because we want like the average person to feel comfortable trying these things. And it's just like the butter I talked about. That was just a lark. I mean, my wife and I have done quite a bit of canning, quite a bit of dehydrating. Nice. We're working on being better foragers. We seem to do just fine hunting, but my dad's side of the family was in Idaho before it was a state, and there was no electricity obviously back then. I mean, the part of the state my dad was from, he didn't get a light bulb in his room till he was in the 3rd grade. So wow. It's a little different here, but there's things my family has done for a long time that I'm revisiting, and I think that it just helps us feel good about our being able to continue our quality of life. Doing things like curing game meat and folding and canning and things like that. So that's kind of the direction that we're trying to take with it, just to insulate ourselves from the failure of a grid.
I mean, it definitely seems kind of multifaceted. I mean, you're just trying to live probably a healthier life. Trying to, strip out some of the preservatives. B, you're just kind of like taking the reins. Like you want control over what's going on. And like, if we're relying on, power and water from somebody else, like, well, our hands are kind of tied. So,
yeah, exactly.
And that's it. Yeah. And that's definitely kind of what I'm mostly curious about today is, so like maybe some baby steps into like, how can we, baby step our way into being a little bit more in control of what's going on with under our own roof. And then like, cooking and, eating food, under our own roof, like under our own power.
Right. I think, as far as the journey goes, I think like jerky is the gateway drug that gets you started on all of this.
Yes.
Because, like I think I mentioned in one of the previous conversations we had, I have a brine mix that predates Idaho itself. And, you can use it on absolutely anything. And, it works. And the reason it works is because, people know the old ways, even though they didn't understand the chemistry of it, for some reason it worked. Just to use jerky as an example, a lot of people, their jerky turns out boils early, but a lot of those same people use like a salt-based rub or a salt-based brine, but they don't add any sugar to it. Sugar is key because it has an osmotic effect, and it pulls the water from the bacterium, and it also keeps it softer and chewier. So it actually, enhances the preservation abilities of it and makes it more palatable. So, once you get over the jerky hump, then you're on to canning, and who knows where you will end up. One of the most interesting things to me is my grandpa Nebraska, before he made it to Idaho, and they preserved everything in a salt bin. So, they would shoot wild game or slaughter a pig, and they had a bin of salt, coarse, like rock salt in their barn, and they would just bury it. And if you wanted a piece of meat, you pulled it out, you lopped a chunk off and soaked it overnight in vinegar and water, and then suddenly you have meat again. So, that's probably the holy grail, is going that
like
far.
Pirates, yes.
But yeah, it's just I think it's just a process.
Have you guys tried that yet? Just like salt binning?
I've not tried that
protein. Yet. No, not that far off grid yet.
I have smoked just about everything you can imagine. I've smoked turkey, fish, turkeys, everything. I use the same brine. It's a real big secret. It's equal parts brown sugar, white sugar, and salt, and then you just mix water in until the solution is saturated. And that's all it takes. You can add your spices and all that, but it will preserve meat. And, we've done a lot of that, and, it always turns out good. I mean, you can make smoked fish pizzas and pastas when you're done. So, you just have to be able to figure out how to make it so you're not eating the same thing all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely, I think, part of our conversation earlier was just keeping it palatable, keeping it, diverse, making sure you've got, enough to mentally sustain yourself, as well as, nutritionally sustain yourself, because you can't just eat the same thing day after day after day.
Right.
So, you might have talked about this on your last interview with Nick, but what's basically like when you started out going off grid, like where did you kind of start, like gear and equipment wise? Like, are you more like with the jerky, like smoking it, or like with a dehydrator, or like, I guess what I'm trying to gear towards is like for recommending gear towards somebody who like wants to start doing more of this themselves. Like what like top 5 things would you might recommend?
Yeah, basically how I got to start. I mean, like I said, one side of my family, that's what they did. That's how they operated. I have lived in this same house for almost years. It's a very rural area, so the power goes out all the time, and you have to deal with things like that constantly. But, just a simple little smoker, just to, hone your skills as far as not just smoking jerky, but, try fish, because fish is one of those things, with all the omega-3 fatty acids and things like that. Studies have shown that if you're eating that, you're less likely to, even have violent outbursts in an emergency situation, So if you can get something together, like I said, like I started with a little cheap smoker that my grandpa got at his retirement party from the railroad when I was, he gave it to me. I was like 10. He's like, here, have at it. And I mean, I melted cheese all over it when I was 10 years old because I didn't understand any of it. And, he's like, well, no, that's not how that works. And I would make jerky that was so salty you couldn't even touch it. And he's like, no, that's not how it works. You have to put water in it, So I would say, if you just want to get started and you're out there, get a cheap little smoker, get a good food dehydrator, get a pressure canner, one that doubles as a water bath, and get on the internet. unfortunately, you got to have that part of the web to get going on it.
Yeah, that or buy a couple of books.
Yeah,
I'm trying to stockpile. Yeah, trying to make a stockpile library, of all these little things. Because if the grid fails, like the internet's gone. So you got to have something printed out, I think.
Yeah, I think I'll be honest. I just actually got one. Was it Prepper's Guide to Survival or something like that?
Okay.
My sister got it for me for Christmas. I mean, I've looked through it. It's actually really great. It's like first things to do, like right when things start to fail, and then into cooking recipes and what kind of seeds to sow and stuff like that. So, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I use it I just enjoy using some of the recipes in the backyard.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Well, it's fun. Just like, again, taking back the reins. It's fun. Just it's a different way to do things. It's maybe the original way to do things. Cooking on a fire versus cooking on your electric stove inside. But again, just kind of going back to the roots.
It's a perfect episode because you guys are always making fun of how primitive I am about everything.
So I'm glad you were able to join tonight. Yes.
Yeah, Chris, I'm a big cast iron guy. Chris has got the fancy mechanical thermometer that hooks to his phone for his freezers if the power goes out, whereas I just got the quarter sitting on top of the water dish in there, and I know when it's going out because it goes, it freezes below the level. So I love this, man. I guess a question that I have before we get too far forward in it is, so when you're with your whole thing that you have going on right now, is your cabin really where you guys are going off grid with, or is your house set up to be off grid as well?
It's actually kind of a combination. It's like I said, we live in a very rural area. We have power. We have natural gas here at our house, but when the power goes out, which it does frequently, we live on a community water system. There's 6 houses on a well. So power goes out, the water goes out about a half hour after that. So, we do have barrels of water, and we've been through power outages that have lasted, a week, 2 weeks here. Oh, wow. I mean, it's not uncommon. So transferring that to our cabin isn't really that hard, because you're used to the rougher aspect of it. But then once you get up to the cabin, you want to make it as easy as it is at home. So, like for the cooking, since you guys are focused on cooking, I don't know if you've noticed my Instagram, there's a lot of stuff you can see an electric range behind it. And that's because we kind of use our house here as the test kitchen to make sure it'll work. And then we go up and cook it on the fire at the cabin, or cook it on the wood cook stove at the cabin. So this is kind of a test tube, if you will, and we test things and take it up there, because the nearest power pole to our cabin is 2 miles away. And I mean, cell phone service isn't even reliable up there. It's, it's off the grid. I mean, there are neighbors, and there's good neighbors there. That we have one that lives across the street, if you will, and they're top-notch people, but you're up there, you're pretty much on your own. And we have a few things to make it easier. We have a propane oven that we have up there, and like I said, we have a 2-burner, and I don't know what they call them the rest of the world in Idaho. They call them trash burners, but it's a 2-burner cook stove that you can, it takes little teeny wood. You just pack it full. Sometimes you have to change your wood to get the temperature that you want, but everything that we have up there is cooked. The most modern thing would be with propane. One of the fun things I did that was kind of interesting, because you like the more rustic stuff, Corey, is my wife and daughter found a pizza oven, like one of those little propane pizza ovens. So I zapped a bunch of legs onto it so it would fit on our cooker that we have out front, and now we have a wood-fired pizza oven at our cabin.
Nice.
Oh, awesome.
That's super cool.
So it's just, constantly improving it up there is kind of the goal. So, we're pretty rural here, but we're really rural up there.
Yeah. Well, I love this. So it's kind of like at your house, it's kind of like a security blanket. And then over at the cabin, it's kind of like, hey, here's where we're going to take this long term.
Yeah,
That's
we can. I mean, like I said in the previous podcast I did, I don't know if my wife's real big about retiring there, but I'll be fine there.
Yes,
I mean,
that's awesome.
it's a pretty cool area, but she really enjoys being up there too. So
that's important. It is
important. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Well, so right off the bat, like we don't necessarily need to talk about like, all right, we're doomsday prepping. We're just going to go all in. Even chatting just like little tiny baby steps, like you already mentioned, making jerky, canning, what are some like little baby steps we could be doing? I also want to talk about like some mistakes. Like, have you made any like mistakes recently, or like have you seen any other like newer off-gridders talk about their mistakes? Like, what are some things that we should look out for? Like, if we're wanting to start this journey into more self-sustainability.
The only real mistake I could say that I made up there, I mean, like I said, I've been through a lot of training. I've been a government worker for a long time. I deal in logistics. That's what I do for a living. And when we first bought the property, we had a little camp trailer that was up there, and we didn't have a cabin or anything. And I went out and shot an elk and came back, and I was going to start the furnace in the camper, so it'd be warm when I got done boning my elk out and hanging it up, and it blew up on me. I jiffy popped the camper, and I didn't know it because it was dark. We had no lights. I didn't have any electric lights, nothing. I didn't know what I looked like, nothing. And turns out I burnt myself pretty good, and I didn't have trauma kits or any way to know what had happened to me until I got to a friend's house that was 40 miles away. And then we had to drive another 40 miles to the hospital. So the most important thing I can say is make sure you have your first aid stuff in order. I mean, you're always going to have an issue there. The other thing the other big mistake is last year after deer season. It's not a big mistake. It's first world problems. But we left a bunch of beer and pop in the cabin inside of a cooler thinking that would contain it. Well, it gets down to 10 below. You start blowing pop-ups, and it actually blew the top off the cooler and blew all over the inside of the cabin.
No.
So to go from serious problem to lighthearted problem, it definitely gets cold there, and it gets cold everywhere. But yeah, you have to think ahead to things like that. How much damage you're going to do leaving carbonated stuff in your cabin.
Seriously,
I mean, luckily it didn't hit our. We have a power bank there, a Blue Eddy. Luckily it didn't get hit with that, because that would have just destroyed it and shorted it out.
Seriously, yeah. Well, honestly, safety is no joke. Like, especially in the kitchen. Like, I can't tell you how many times. Well, right now, I was processing a deer, and sliced your finger real good. And so just being cautious. Go slow. Obviously,
take your time.
Rush through anything. Boiling water, hot oil, like it all can hurt you. So let's go slow.
Yeah,
but definitely have all those all that safety equipment ready to go. Well, do you want to talk a little bit maybe about some cooking methods or preserving? Like, where do you feel like you want to go next? With some of this?
Well, the preserving thing, like I said, we touched on that a little bit. We do mostly at this point. Us smoking meat and things like that is more for enjoyment than true preservation, but I feel that sets the stage for that to be a possibility. So being able to preserve your meat is huge. I mean, obviously there's no freezer up there. We've thought about putting in cold storage up there, because it is our property is a northern facing slope, so it would lend itself very well to that. But I think canning and dehydrating are probably two of the best ways to go about preserving that. And like we talked about the canning, it's super easy and it turns out super good. So, there's no reason not to, because all you have to do is just rotate your stock. And there's a few different ways to do it. You can salt cure things. I have a friend of mine at work that is getting pretty good at doing biltong. I don't know if you guys have ever tried. And I mean, it's phenomenal. The only problem with it is it's not salty like jerky, so you can eat like the whole batch, and then you're just loaded.
Yeah.
But being able to air dry things, we haven't gotten into freeze drying. That's something my wife and I are considering doing.
I'm real curious about that.
People had a lot of success with it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
there's a few booths at our farmers markets. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. There's a few booths at our farmers markets, and one booth does all the candies. So they're like freeze drying their Skittles and all this stuff, and just it looks crazy cool. Oh yeah. And the other booth does
that's
like
probably
meals.
the most expensive place to start, right?
Freeze drying, probably, yeah.
I haven't seen like freeze drying equipment. Like, I mean, I've seen like the little kits and stuff like that you can get. I mean, it's still the smallest kit is like $1,500, $1,700.
Yeah.
But I've seen on up to like $4,000 or $5,000 for the setup.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people don't realize like you can dehydrate your food in your oven.
Oh yeah.
You can you just set that stuff as low as it'll go and just let that just let it roll for hours and hours and you'll get there. But nowadays, with like you said with dehydrators and stuff like that, I mean, you can get a decent one on Amazon now for $40-$50 that's got 25,000 reviews. And at least get started there, cheaply. I'm a big, Chris will tell you, I'm big on finding the least expensive way of starting something before I ever.
Corey likes a good deal.
Put any money into anything. I just got hunting gear clothing this last year. I've always been I hunt in flannels and jeans, or thermal pants, and I finally get hunting gear and spend the money, and what happens? I lose 50 pounds, and now my pants are way too big, and I spend all this money on these pants. So I'm always looking for the cheapest way possible to get started on something.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I think that I've seen those $2,500-$2,700 kits out there, and it's like, boy, that'd be great, but to what end? It's like,
right.
do we really want to make that jump? I mean, talking about your food dehydrator, my wife's dehydrator she got when she was in college, and I bet we've dehydrated probably 150, 200 pounds of mushrooms with it alone, let alone herbs and other edibles. And I mean, that little thing just keeps going and going and going. Yes. I mean, it runs from like September, about August to September, just chugging away.
Ours used to be white. It's yellow now. I mean,
so is hers.
Yep. Is it one of those like the coils on the bottom and the trays above it?
No, it's got the round. It's still the plastic one.
Yeah. My dad's got the exact same one. Yeah.
It used to be real bright white, and now it's about the color of this hoodie.
Yes.
Yeah, ours is the round white one.
Yep. Yeah. The freeze drying would be phenomenal. As far as like the whole like off grid, like I don't know how useful it would actually be. I mean, it requires power.
Well, and I'm assuming like if you're using solar, if you're on a solar bank, like I'm assuming that would probably still pull a ton of that juice that you've built up.
Yeah, I
what are you guys doing for power
requirements on those? What we use, we have a Blue Eddy, and it's one of those portable power banks. It's just a different version. Most people know.
Was it solar or?
It's rechargeable. So what we do is it's a 2,700 amp hour battery bank, and we charge it off of our generator up there. So when I built the cabin, I wired run off of generator power or run off of the battery bank power. So it'll run the cabin for about a week, and then you can charge it up in a day with our little generator.
That's super cool. Yeah. Yeah, look into that freeze dryer. Yeah, see what that'll do to your battery there, and you might be able to freeze a couple stews, but it'll cost you a week of power.
Yeah, so I'm looked it up between 990 and 2,000 watts per hour.
Yeah, so that'd be about an hour.
Is that a lot?
And a half on our power bank, or you could run it off of the generator because our generator's a 200 watt. There you go. 2,200, 2,000 continuous.
Yeah. So what?
So yeah, that'd be a stretch. That'd be all you're doing.
Figure it out. Figure it out. Tell us if it's worth it long term. Yeah. Are you going to freeze a couple meals, freeze dry a few meals for the power? Yeah. There's always some give and take for sure.
Right.
Yes. What are things here? Canning. Let's talk about canning for a hot second. Just like straight liquid bath canning, pressure canning. I know earlier you said you recommended getting a pressure canner, and I'm just now starting to dabble in that a little bit as well. Like I really, really want to learn more of like tomatoes. I really need to learn how to can a tomato so I have a whole tomato left over after the canning process, like you find in the store. Like I want whole tomatoes that are preserved really well. Every time I try and pressure can them, they just like disintegrate down into like tomato juice. So that's my goal with canning. But
tomatoes a lot of times are high enough acid that you can water bath them. If you pressure can them, I know that they can blow up, but what my wife did is she would get we had a bunch of aromas one year. We had like a total bumper crop of aromas. And so she blanched them and you peel them and then just gave them a real light pressure can. And they came out, solid little Roma tomatoes. There's Roma and a couple other heirloom varieties that I can't recall that, actually stand up to that. But if you throw a beefsteak in there, they're just too juicy and they'll just wad right up. But, as far as tomatoes, that's the only way I know that we've been able to get whole tomatoes. And we've done spaghetti sauce, chili starter.
Yes.
I mean, you name it. I've even canned chili verde because, that's one of my favorite things to eat. But you don't see people canning that very often. But, it's pork and peppers, and you pressure can it just like you're canning pork. But, the thing to remember with that is I think it's a pH of 4.3 or below, 4.3 or above is considered low acid. So that's going to need to be pressure canned. Then, you can usually find that right in the directions of how to pressure can it. So, you avoid getting botulism because it's an anaerobic bacteria. So it can live without that air. So, that's the whole point of pressure canning is you jack the pressure up because it brings the temperature up and gets it beyond that 212 boiling temperature.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious what botulism tastes like.
Supposedly it's tasteless.
When you're opening a can, it's tasteless. Oh, no. Because I am kind of worried.
I just read that going over my notes.
Oh, no. Because, that's one thing, I'm worried about, canning stuff. How long is this really good for? And then, what if I screw it up? How will I know? And I know, there's tons of books out there. I just need to do more research. But, the seals.
We try and keep our stuff rotated through pretty good.
Yeah. Don't let it sit for 2 years. That's goal number one, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think the great thing about this too is there's just so much information out there now.
There is.
It's not like our grandparents where if they weren't taught those things, those skills, they just didn't have them. Whereas now, we have this whole generation that's moving back towards that, and I know I know there is a big a part of this younger generation is a bit doomed, but I feel Chris, no offense, but we're our side of the generation is I think moving back towards being a little bit more off grid.
I think we're trying,
and we have it's the sourdough. The COVID sourdough starters is kind of what got us there. But, we just have so much more access to it. I mean, I probably have 20 or 30 accounts that follow me and I follow them on social media that, some of those ladies are just, they're just on it, man. They're so informative and have so much information on their profiles that it's just, they make it look easy. Granted, they've probably had dozens of trials before that, but it makes you feel okay, I can do this. Surely, there's 20 of these ladies right here just on my newsfeed that I can probably go to and ask questions if I needed to.
Yeah, I think
that's a great point, Corey, because I totally agree with that. And the big driver behind what my wife and I are doing and why we even went on social media in the first place is because, our kids are grown. And then once we went through the COVID stuff, you're like, there's a lot of kids that don't know what our kids know, so it's like, let's keep teaching people, and, I'm a regular old Gen Xer, old from the, not a lot of Gen Xers do this. They're coming back, but slower than the next generation, because a lot of them are already comfortable and retired. They don't have that same fear or driver, I guess, that I do, and I just want to keep teaching people.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. Well, definitely, like you said, Corey, like our generation is just kind of like, I think we're, we grew up with a little bit of this stuff, but like we're starting to like realize like, oh, hey, this convenience is like kind of hurting us more than it's helping us. And so we're trying to like build up our own little safety net of like, okay, how do we do this ourselves? And the pandemic definitely like kicked that into high gear, I think, for a lot of us of like, okay, like the system's pretty fragile. Like it doesn't take a lot to like bring the world to its knees. So like, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to keep eating? How are we going to keep cooking?
I mean, the thing is, like, I think the biggest thing that when it comes to something like this, we're talking about this, and reason why we started this podcast too is just to be informative. Like, I mean, even 2 years ago, I didn't know how to make bread, and now like and now everyone's always asking me to make bread.
Yeah.
And so it seems like I can't go to anything without someone like, hey, dude, you got to bring some of your bread. And so like, I mean, I didn't know how to do this.
Tasty,
I would say even a year ago, I didn't know how to do it. But like you said, Chris, I love what you said. Like you realize that there's a lot of things that your other kids that know that your kids knew. And I've come into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Recently, I'm coaching my daughter's basketball team for the school, and I started to realize like I never wanted to be the dad that pushed my kids into sports. If they want to do them, they will do them, and I will support them. But I'm not going to force that on them. So, granted, with that mindset, my kids are a little bit behind in some of the athletic abilities that some of these other kids are at. But I'm just like, but they don't know how to gut a deer. They don't know how to forage for mushrooms. They don't know how to start a fire. They don't know how to do all of these things that we know how to do. That at the end of the day, sports means nothing. It's gonna give you no skills of any kind if something like that were to happen.
You can outrun the zombies, maybe. But.
Right. Whereas my kids are going to know how to do these things.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I remember my own mom. This was when my youngest was 12. I think she was 12. And my mom called up, asked what we were up to, and she asked what my daughter was doing. I'm like, oh, she's downstairs loading shells for her .6. And she's like, she's loading shells? I'm like, yeah, it's no different than baking a cookie. You give them a recipe, you show them the process, and yeah, she's loaded her own shells since she was 12 years old.
That's phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Love that. Yes. Well, let's talk about cooking a little bit. Shifting gears here a little bit. You said you're cooking, mostly on propane. A lot. Propane and a wood stove, right?
Propane and wood up at the cabin.
Yeah.
Yep. And like I said, we use our kitchen here is a test kitchen, and we can cook on wood out here too because we live on 10 acres here. But
nice.
Yeah, up our cabin, we've gotten really good at learning how to run the cast iron with the wood stove. I mean, just to get your temperature up. It's definitely a different experience, because you have to take an active role in maintaining that temperature. Whether you're on the campfire that we have out, my fire pit is made out of a dump truck hub. I don't know if you guys have looked at my Instagram, but that's what it is with a grill on top of it. And, awesome. Once you get that cast iron heated up, it'll treat you pretty good. It'll hold that. But when it gets cold, during deer season, you go inside the cabin and you're cooking on that little 2-burner wood stove. You have to have different kinds of wood ready to throw it in. You're cooking on large, you've got that nice hot fire going, and you're trying to make some heart finger steaks, for example. That was the last thing we cooked up there. Yes. So you've got the deer heart on there, you just drop it in and it's starting to go, and you can see your oil cool off and your batter's starting to get a little greasy. Well, you have to throw a couple pieces of cedar in to jack it back up. And, it takes a lot, I think, to get back to that, because, I mean, anybody can cook a hot dog or a steak or a burger on a grill. I mean, that's basic manhood. But once you get into start working on some of that stuff on a wood stove, it's a totally different game.
It's a different ball game. Yeah. Yeah. My great aunt, my dad's aunt had a old wood cabin up in, Canada, kind of southern Canada. And her stove was all just like log fire driven. And it was like beautiful, beautiful stove. Like she had that thing like figured out. She could cook anything like at the drop of a hat. Like it was awesome watching her work. But definitely a skill I do not have. Yeah.
But that's one thing. You get into a situation where you're, out there for a long time. You're not going to want to fry a steak every day. You have to learn how to manipulate that. And I think one of the most important things we ever did at our cabin that really was a game changer is we put in a full-on spice rack on the kitchen part of it, and we've got everything. I mean, we can do everything from Asian food to Indian food to Mexican food to soul food, and that's just the important part of it, because you don't want to burn out on it. And if it's some sort of an
100%.
Emergency situation, the more comfortable you are, the better decisions you'll make.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Love that. That's good.
Yeah, definitely in the notes. I mean, definitely we chatted about, keeping it familiar. Like I like that, like just, good dishes that you like, that you enjoy. I wouldn't mind talking about like some of the mental game too.
Yeah.
And I guess we are kind of drifting more towards like, hey, like it's, I don't want to go too apocalyptic with all of these thinkings and these topics, but I think it's important to at least think about. But maybe after we do a little
really
bit of
hard
like
there.
the mental side of Offgrid, maybe we can go back to like baby steps. Like what are some baby steps that like Corey and I can do it here in northern Indianapolis, to become more self-sufficient and
yeah the psychological side of things.
Yeah, psychologically speaking, I've been through some of that training. It's kind of fascinating, what the government has come up with and other groups. One thing when I was going through my notes that was fascinating to me, I didn't even notice it till I read it today, but I don't know how they came up with the metric, but a 1% decrease in food security can lead to a 12% increase in violent crime. So I thought that was really fascinating, to
believe that
look at 100%.
That. Yeah.
But I think, with the baby steps is find foods that pair well together that you can cook like on wood. Like I said, we eat pretty spicy here, but we eat a lot of Indian food, Asian food, and Mexican food, I guess you could say, but they use a lot of the same spices. So if you have the same spices in your spice rack, it's just different proportions and slightly different preparations. If you educate yourself on that, you can, turn one hunk of cow into 15 different meals that they're going to feel fun. You're going to have that memory of, I remember when I made this, when we were out fishing and we came back and made carne asada. It was so awesome, and just the psychological standpoint, of being able to have something that gives you hope, something that gives you comfort. And like I said, everything I've ever read, the more comfortable you are, the better decisions you make, the more cautious you're going to be, the more self-preserving you're going to be.
Yeah. Well, and, taking this back to more of like the baby steps. So let's go back. Let's say like canning meat. You don't want to rely on your freezer. So let's can a bunch of this meat. So now we've got maybe a dozen ball jars full of just meat in our pantry. What do we do with that? Great example. Yeah, just like learn how to cook the same thing 10 different ways. Like Corey, like you did with your salmon, a dozen episodes ago or whenever that was. Like just, how do you cook the same thing differently? To not get bored of it.
We've
not throw away the venison in your pantry because you don't know how to use it and you're sick of it.
Yeah, we've used our canned venison to make, stew. We did a little video. It's buried in one of the other videos. I don't even know if you can find it, but we called it Bug Out Chili. We went up to the cabin. Nice. We had a can of venison, some jalapenos, spices, and 2 cans of beans. So, there's number 2. Then number 3, yes. You can, like you were suggesting, Chris, hit it with a little bit of your milk that may have gone bad that is now sour cream, and you've got stroganoff. Or, you mix it with tomatoes and a little bit of cilantro, some onions, and some curry powder, and all of a sudden you've got tandoori deer, or tikka masala deer. So if you just pair these up and, give it a little bit of thought, I mean, you can do just about anything with it, or you can just, eat it and make a soup like they did in the 1800s. But
yeah, right.
I mean, I would be more interested in having it over rice with some nice, korma sauce or something like that. But, just being able to, look at the same thing 6 different ways. I mean, you can make tacos and chili all day long, but can you make something that's, a special dinner that you remember from back home? Like I said, my wife is big into Indian food, and so is my youngest daughter. And it's like, okay, well, I could make deer korma, and all of a sudden they're going to be happy, and they're going to forget that they're cold, or that they have their phone hasn't been charged for 3 days, or
Oh my gosh.
It's just that familiarity.
Yeah, that's super cool.
I love it.
Maybe what are some other baby steps you think like the average Joe American can do at home, like to maybe start thinking about this a little bit more? I think canning is a phenomenal start.
Canning, I think, is a great start. I think dehydrating, start with your mushrooms, your herbs from your garden. That's stuff that it's horribly expensive, to buy it. But if you have a whole bunch of lemon thyme or something that you can run through your dehydrator, and it's, 18 cents on your power bill, you might as well. And, Corey has spoken to the power of cast iron. If you can cook on cast iron on an electric stove, you can cook on cast iron anywhere. It's kind of like stainless steel. Once you learn to preheat it, you can cook with it anywhere. And, cast iron is very forgiving. You're gonna burn stuff. Maybe you should start with fajitas before you try and make, something really fancy in it. But I think cast iron is a great place to begin, because you're gonna hurt a cast iron pan. It will be with you for generations, and it'll never let you down. So I definitely think that your cooking utensils are another baby step, because plastic, it melts. You eat plastic, nobody wants that.
No, not a good flavor. No. Well, it also sounds like just learning to cook on fire. So maybe try and like ditch the gas grill. Maybe just like throw some sticks, in a, I don't know, what do you use again for your fire pit? Build a fire on the ground.
I used a dump truck hub.
A dump truck hub, yes.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a big cast iron hub off of a dump truck.
That's perfect. Yeah, find a safe place to make a fire. Get some healthy coals going, and just try and cook a meal.
Yeah.
I think that's. I mean, that's definitely what I need to practice. Yeah.
And you see people do it all the time. They take their cast iron skillet and take it out and put it on their Traeger. It's no different to put it on a real fire. You might have to re-season the bottom because you might get it a little hot. So you have to kind of fix it back up on the bottom. But that is probably, really looking at it and talking to you guys, that's probably the easiest thing to do before jerky and before canning, is learn how to take your cast iron out and put it on a fire and do it old school.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, for me, I mean, it's funny that you say that, because that has been, so when I have young men in my life that are graduating from high school or even college, and we're going to those parties, that has become my gift that I get them. Listen, dude, you're heading off to school. Mommy ain't going to be around to cook your meals anymore. If you can learn how to use this thing properly, dude, you can bake cakes in this thing. You can do whatever you want in this thing, and you can make some good meals. And honestly, as a young guy, single guy, you can impress some women by cooking in this thing.
So much.
So, it's a great tool, and it's something that I've started. I really have started. It's my go-to is a great Lodge 10-inch cast iron skillet is what I give for graduation gifts now.
I love it.
Yeah, that's an amazing idea. I might pick that one up from you.
Yes.
And the next step is your Dutch oven. Once you learn how to work a Dutch oven, they're amazing too. My wife has an enamel coated one that she uses in our regular stove. It hasn't made it to the fire, but that's what she makes her bread in now. Perfect. And just learning those basic steps. I mean, the heat source, you can change that. But, once you learn how that pan reacts, you can really learn how to cook from it and get what you want, get the long-term cooking or get the sear or whatever you're looking for there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A cast iron Dutch oven cake will change your life.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
So freaking good. Even just like a box, like buy a box cake, throw it in the Dutch oven. Yeah. Put the lid on, put it in we just use the briquettes, like the charcoal briquettes.
Uh-huh.
A friend from a small group earlier in our lives just had mastered that process, and it's almost like lava cake, kind of gooey and just it's so good.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, my birthday cake every year.
Is it? Yeah.
My birthday cake every year, my wife makes in a little 1-quart Dutch oven. It's a little teeny tiny thing, and it's basically Jiffy Mix and huckleberries. And you throw it on the fire, and 20 minutes later, you got birthday cake. It's amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah. That sounds so good.
It also sounds like I need to get more like berries planted. We're talking about these huckleberries a lot. I need some berries in my yard.
My blackberries did really
huckleberries
good.
Grow like weeds here.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Some Indiana.
Yeah.
Let me get some.
They grow from the 4th of July to middle of September, depending on the elevation. I mean, our base elevation here is around 2,400 feet elevation. They start at the 4th of July and they just start going up the hill until it frosts. And if you're really lucky, in late
September. In July, August, what's the heat like in July, August out there?
Mid 80s.
Okay, so it doesn't get hundreds like it does here in the Midwest.
It gets hundreds, but that's August, and the huckleberries have moved farther up the hill by then.
Sure. Yeah, I got little kids. My blueberry bill is a lot higher than I want it to be. So,
yeah,
if I can grow these things, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, Chris, we don't want to keep you. Well, we're not. We're only keeping you from dinner. Corey and I are getting ready for bed here. Any parting thoughts? Any last minute thoughts you've had on the episode? Anything you want to leave us with specifically?
I'd like to leave you with the thanks for putting me out there so that hopefully I can reach some more people so that they can see this. And I know it's a big
tell us where to find you. We're gonna link. We're gonna link all your stuff. But yeah, tell people listening, where we can search to
we have a
content.
YouTube channel, and it's Halfass Offgrid, and we also have an Instagram, Halfass Offgrid, and just started a Facebook channel for the older people my age and older that don't do Instagram and YouTube. And nice. we just like having genuine content for real people. Yeah. I mean, we don't sensationalize it or anything like that. We just, want to show people what they do, hopefully inspire a few people here and there to move on and move up. That's how I look at it.
Like I said, it's genuine, it's authentic, it's real. Yeah.
Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Hey, I think he gave us our recipe, man.
You did? Well, a few of them. Yeah, we got tons of recipes.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, did you guys try the Korean beef I sent you yet?
I've not. No, but I need to so bad.
Oh, it's bomb.
Yes.
But if I had to give you guys a recipe, something that's a little out of the ordinary, everybody likes their steak just like in your intro where you slice it thin. Personally, I think you took a little too much silver skin off of that, but it's called Crying Tiger sauce. And it's a Thai sauce. And it's hot at first, but it goes away really quick. And I don't know if you want me to read it off or just email it to you, but basically it's...
if you want to read it off, that'd be awesome right now.
All right. I'll read it off. I got it right here in my notes. But
dude, you're speaking my language here. Like I love all that hot stuff.
Oh, this is definitely hot, but like I said, it goes away quick, so you can just keep eating it and eating it and eating it, and let it drip on your rice when you're. Have you ever cooked on a salt block?
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
Oh, so you take your deer steak, you slice it thin, you cook it on your Himalayan salt block, pull it off, dip it in the sauce, and it drips on your rice. It's to die for.
Oh, that sounds good.
But so it's 2 tablespoons Thai fish sauce, a 1/3 cup of lime juice, a teaspoon of tamarind paste, 2 pods of chili pepper, and I get them from an Asian store in Spokane, and it's just a big bag that you get for like $5, and it said hottest Asian chili on it. So, and they're hot. And then a teaspoon of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons cilantro, 2 tablespoons green onion, and then if you want to dilute it, you can add up to a tablespoon of water to it. And nice. I mean, this stuff is phenomenal. You can dip stuff in it. It goes really good. Like if you do the Asian orange salads with the mandarin oranges, use it for a little bit of the salad dressing. But yeah, I highly recommend it. I think you'll love it.
That sounds awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll definitely have to put that in the notes for sure to see what we get, what kind of feedback we get from that. Cause that sounds.
Yeah. So say that again. You're cooking your steak on a salt block and then you're just dipping it in your sauce and then just eating it with rice.
Yeah, so you get your we have a little salt block. Ours is, about that big, that thick. You get it up to about 500-600 degrees, as hot as your oven will take it. And then you put it on your table, on your little hot
so you're like literally
there.
Cooking it like as you
and then you take your meat, drop it on it, and then take it off. And usually we have like some this is obviously not an off-grid thing, this is an on-grid thing. I haven't figured out how to do that yet on the fire, but when I do, you'll probably see the video. But yeah, you can put your vegetables on there, maybe have like a little trout fillet going. But yeah, it's amazing.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that sounds dynamite.
That's awesome.
Well, dude, I appreciate you sharing all your knowledge with us. Definitely follow Chris along. Like the journey is super fun. Definitely real. Definitely a lot of cool things happening over on all the channels. So yeah, log on to YouTube, follow Halfass Offgrid. So love their chat. Yeah, thank you so much for being here, and looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with, and hopefully you don't get any pickles.
That shouldn't be. I'll just be making pickles. That's all. I really appreciated this opportunity, you guys.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Chris.
Appreciate you.
You're very welcome.